Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. This video is about Ezekiel 16. It's been a while since I did a full chapter. I've summarized it up to maybe chapter 35 or so by now. It's in my Ezekiel playlist. It's titled Jerusalem as an Adulterous Wife. So let me kind of do this 20 verses at a time or so, and then I'll explain it, because this is a long chapter. It's like 63 verses, but we'll get through it. The word of the Lord came to me: Son of man, confront Jerusalem with her detestable practices, and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says to Jerusalem. Your ancestry and birth were in the land of Canaanites. Your father was an Amorite, and your mother a Hittite. On the day you were born, your cord was not cut, nor were you washed with water to make you clean, nor were you rubbed with salt or wrapped in cloths. No one looked on you with pity or had compassion enough to do any of these things for you. Rather, you were thrown out into the open field. For the day you were born, you were despised. Then I passed by and saw you kicking about in your blood. And as you lay there in your blood, I said to you, live. I made you grow like a plant of the field. You grew and developed and entered puberty. Your breasts had formed and your hair had grown. Yet you were stark naked. Later I passed by, and when I looked at you and saw that you were old enough for love, I spread the corner of my garment over you and covered your naked body. I gave you my solemn oath and entered into a covenant with you, declares the sovereign Lord. And you became mine. I bathed you with water and washed the blood from you and put ointments on you. I clothed you with an embroidered dress and put sandals of fine leather on you. I dressed you in fine linen and covered you with costly garments. I adorned you with jewelry. I put bracelets on your arms and a necklace around your neck. And I put a ring on your nose, earrings on your ears, and a beautiful crown on your head. So you were adorned with gold and silver. Your clothes were of fine linen and costly fabric and embroidered cloth. Your food was honey, olive oil, and the finest flour. You became very beautiful and rose to be a queen. And your fame spread among the nations on account of your beauty, because the splendor I had given you made your beauty perfect, declares the sovereign Lord. But you trusted in your beauty and used your fame to become a prostitute. You lavished your favors on anyone who passed by, and your beauty became his. You took some of your garments to make gaudy high places, where you carried on your prostitution. You went to him, and he possessed your beauty. You also took the fine jewelry I gave you, the jewelry made of gold and silver, and you made for yourself male idols and engaged in prostitution with them. And you took your embroidered clothes to put them on, and you offered my oil and incense before them. Also the food I prepared for you, the flour, olive oil, and honey I gave you to eat, you offered as fragrant incense before them. That is what happened, declared the sovereign Lord. And you took your sons and daughters whom you bore to me and sacrificed them as food to the idols. Was your prostitution not enough? Okay, so what is it saying here? So it says, long ago, what made the Jewish people, right? What made their flesh, right? What made their pre-existing culture? Because they weren't always Jews, right? Their father was an Amorite. And if we go to Genesis, we see that the Amorites were the offspring of Ham. They were the descendants of Ham. And their mother was a Hittite. The Hittites are very significant in Egyptian history. The Battle of Kadesh, what have you. They're these kind of Middle Asians, these Near Asians. Okay, so they're, like I've been saying for years. And there's more than one reason people don't have viable counter-arguments. One is I'm much more intelligent than everyone else. I'm more well-researched than lots and lots of people, especially when you consider my powerful brain at work. In a sense, I'm more well-researched than everyone when you consider that. The other one is that I'm right. The Hebrew is, for example, when we're talking about the language they're speaking, right? Hebrew is an Afro-Asiatic language. Now, God does not come from Shem, right? God was there before Noah. And Noah had 3 children, right? Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Spiritually speaking, right? And so God sees these people who are black and Hittite, right? They're Afro-Asiatic, is the argument being made here. And he says to them, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you get rid of that pagan nonsense, and I'm going to teach you to be divine. Now, there's all kinds of lunatics who want to twist this, right? There's all kinds of people from different religions, Mormons, what have you. There's gays, there's white supremacists, Jewish supremacists, LGBT supremacists. They want to pretend it's their spirit. Can you imagine Bibi Netanyahu or Bill Gates or Rick Moranis pretending that the spirit that they're talking about is magically theirs? Nonsense. You think it's gay, fairy church depiction? No. It's not that Luciferian, fairy, Pharisee church depictions of angels that you see either. It's universal pinpoint and moral precision. So the garments, right, these fine linen, the righteous acts, okay, when it talks about it, put a ring on your nose, right, a gold ring, gold standing for wisdom, right? And in Proverbs 11:22 it says, a beautiful woman who lacks good sense is like a gold ring in a pig's snout. So what does she do? She starts becoming like a pig, right? In the Proverbs 11 sense, okay? And the pig that the demons were cast into by Christ is a character in the story. So she prostitutes herself like a filthy pig, like a filthy slut. And the honey, which stands for wisdom, the olive oil, right, anointing by God, the finest flour, like the finest presence, the finest spirit, the finest processing, right, because you process flour, the finest everything that matters most spiritually speaking, okay? So here's this, they're saying there's this beautiful kind of black and Semitic, black and Asian kind of mixed together looking person, right, or people. And here's this Spirit of God. And for those of you who say, no, that's not how it went, again, the Amorites are the descendants of Ham, and the Hittites are these Near Asian people. And the Semites who are there are overwhelmed by their breeding cycle. So they're Semitic, but they're African first, right? Because her father, again, patriarchs, right? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Her father, the father of Israel, was an Amorite. So there's these tall black guys who are reproducing with them, right? Now, most Jews who identify as Jews these days are shorter. Why? Well, one logical conclusion is they're not the real Jews. Another one is that when they started to be idolaters, they started preferring the shorter guys. Now, this one's a little bit tricky here. Okay? And it's not so important in a sense because, again, does it matter who the Jews are? No, it matters who has the works, who's in the divine order, who's obeying God through me. Okay, so she starts prostituting herself to other peoples, more specifically the deities of their peoples, rather. Okay. So that is what it means she sacrificed their children as food to the idols, right? You slaughter my children and sacrifice them to the idols? In all your detestable practices and your prostitution, you did not remember the days of your youth when you were naked and bare, kicking about in your blood. Woe, woe to you, declares the sovereign Lord. In addition to all your other wickedness, you built a mound for yourself and made a lofty shrine for yourself in every public square. At every street corner you built your lofty shrines and degraded your beauty, spreading your legs with increasing promiscuity to anyone who passed by. You engaged in prostitution with the Egyptians, our neighbors with large genitals, and aroused my anger with your increasing promiscuity. So I stretched out my hand against you and reduced your territory. I gave you over to the greed of your enemies. The daughters of the Philistines were shocked by your lewd conduct. So you gave over to the greed of your enemies. The daughters of the Philistines who were shocked by your lewd conduct, right? Their sexually immoral conduct, things that are similar to sexual immorality, right? If you look up what lewdness means. You engaged in prostitution with the Assyrians too, because you were insatiable. And even after that, you were still not satisfied. Then you increased your promiscuity to include Babylonia, a land of merchants, but even with this you were not satisfied. I am filled with fury against you, declares the sovereign Lord. When you do all these things, acting like a brazen prostitute, right? Going back to Revelation 17 and 18, the prostitute on the beast, who stands for the various kings, the heads of the beast itself, the horns, they all stand for kings, right? Who have certain conceptions of what's ideal. For example, the king of Jordan might argue that Jordanians are superior, according to him. The king of Saudi Arabia might argue that his people, the king of England, so on and so forth. And they point to different skills. Then there's also, the king of painting or the king of Hollywood or whatever. So all those false idols, all those false scales, all that stupidity, that is key here. When you built your mounds at every street corner and made your lofty shrines in every public square, you were unlike a prostitute because you scorned payment. You adulterous wife, you prefer strangers to your own husband. All prostitutes receive gifts, but you give gifts to all your lovers, bribing them to come to you from everywhere for your illicit favors. So in your prostitution, you are the opposite of others. No one runs after you for your favors. You are the very opposite, for you give payment and none is given to you. Therefore, you prostitute, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Because you poured out your lust and exposed your naked body in your promiscuity with your lovers, and because of all your detestable idols, and because you gave them your children's blood, therefore I am going to gather all your lovers with whom you found pleasure, those you loved as well as those you hated. I will gather them against you from all around, and will strip you in front of them, and they will see you stark naked. I will sentence you to the punishment of women who commit adultery and who shed blood. I will bring on you the blood vengeance of my wrath and jealous anger. Then I will deliver you into the hands of your lovers, and they will tear down your mounds and destroy your lofty shrines. They will strip you of your clothes and take your fine jewelry and leave you stark naked. They will burn down your houses and inflict punishment on you in the sight of many women. I will put a stop to your prostitution, and you will no longer pay your lovers. Then my wrath against you will subside, and my jealous anger will turn away from you. I will be calm and no longer angry. Because you did not remember the days of your youth, but enraged me with all these things, I will surely bring down on your head what you have done, declares the sovereign Lord. Did you not add lewdness to all your other detestable practices? So basically, Israel's prostituting itself to all these deities, everything around them, right? And it talks about the Egyptians first, then the Assyrians and the Babylonians, and that is consistent with history, what have you. And, basically whatever empire was there, they were selling out, unlike Daniel, for example, in the book of Daniel, who preferred death to selling out. Samson, he died rather than selling out. And John the Baptist and Christ and Stephen the Martyr, instead, they were prostituting themselves, and they're forming themselves in the image of those prostitutes, of those false idols, spiritually speaking, physically, what have you. So they're being stripped naked of martial art qualities, divine martial art qualities. They're being stripped naked of things that really have worth, and they're assimilating more and more into those false idols. And so God is saying through Ezekiel that those who don't obey God through me, they're going to keep forming their stupid deities, right? They're going to be like Pee Wee Herman, Donald Trump. They're going to be foolish like atheists, making mistakes like the churches, mosques, and synagogues in a way that makes them Luciferian. They're going to be idiots like the Freemasons, what have you. Everyone who quotes Proverbs will quote this proverb about you. Like mother, like daughter. You are a true daughter of your mother who despised her husband and her children. And you are a true sister of your sisters who despised their husbands and their children. Your mother was a Hittite and your father an Amorite. Notice it says it again. It says, get it right. That's the path you're going down. That goes back to that West African kind of witchcraft called juju, right? That's why it expresses itself when these Semites go to Southern Europe, right? And they really brought their thinking to Greece, as did North Africans, right? Persians, in North Africa, Egyptians, Ethiopians, what have you. And you have eventually in Rome Jupiter and Juno, which connects to that West African juju, witchcraft, right? So they're forged in the spirit of African witchcraft, which, just like African martial arts, pinnacles in West Africa. And again, I don't like witchcraft. I don't respect what they're doing. It's very sick. Your older sister was Samaria, who lived to the north of you with her daughters, and your younger sister, who lived to the south of you with her daughters, was Sodom. So Here, her family, right, includes Samaria, which goes back to the Sumerians. That's what most people connect it to, right? Samaria, another way of saying Sumeria is what I've been told, what I've read. And there's Sodom. Notice she's going to be compared to Sodom. It's like, you're doing what she's doing. Is there a lot of LGBT stuff? Yes. In the West, yes. In Israel, yes. Is it spreading to Africa and there's some kind of resistance going on? You see in Burkina Faso, they claim to be resisting it, but, the Traore looks like an LGBT person, dances and all. But who knows? One way or another, the various angles they're working on, sometimes they don't do it evenly across the board. Some groups embody some demons more than others. And that's what it's talking about here. Let's see what it says next, shall we? You not only follow their ways and copied their detestable practices, but in all your ways you soon became more depraved than they, right? So we see Americans, Israelis, okay? If they have LGBT movements there, are they more depraved than Sodom or less? So I don't break the rules on YouTube. I'll leave you to answer that question here. Okay. No offense to anybody. Some things are a choice and some things aren't. And people should not be confusing what they are, we'll say. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, your sister Sodom and her daughters never did what you did, and her daughters never did what you and your daughters have done. Now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. And what were they doing instead, right? Kind of like Hollywood, kind of like these politicians. The MAGA is a play on words for M, and the second word is gay, and I'm not gay. They are, right? Look at their circus-like ways. Look at them carefully, right? Okay. They were haughty and did detestable things before me. Therefore I did away with them, as you have seen. Samaria did not commit half the sins you did. You have done more detestable things than they. And you have made your sister seem righteous by all the things you have done. Bear your disgrace, for you have furnished some justification for your sister, because your sins were more vile than theirs. They appear more righteous than you. So then be ashamed and bear your disgrace, for you have made your sister appear righteous. I might have messed it up. I typed up this stuff because they do stuff to the Bible, so I can't read it directly from the Bible. However, I will restore the fortunes of Sodom and her daughters, and of Samaria and her daughters, and your fortunes along with theirs. Well, it should be on the screen, right? So that you may bear your disgrace and be ashamed of all you have done in giving them comfort. And your sister Sodom with her daughters, Samaria with her daughters, will return to what they were before, and you and your daughters will return to what you were before. You will not even mention your sister Sodom in the day of your pride. Therefore your wickedness was uncovered. Even so you are now scorned by the daughters of Edom. In the notes it says Aram. And all her neighbors and the daughters of the Philistines, all those around you who despise you. And notice Aram goes back to Aramaic. Okay, one of the languages Jesus was said to have spoken. You will bear the consequences of your lewdness and your detestable practices, declares the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I will deal with you as you deserve, because you have despised my oath by breaking the covenant. You despised, they despised the oath, right, that God had made by breaking the covenant. But keep in mind, the covenant is not with the flesh of the Jews. The covenant is with those who are the offspring of Abraham's promise. See Galatians. Paul makes it clear, okay, for those of you who are Bible thumpers who swear that the Bible can't be wrong. Ironically, it proves you wrong on this point. He makes it clear, for those of you it proves wrong, he makes it clear that the offspring of Abraham aren't the flesh of people, right? It is the spirit of the promise, and it's the one seed, which is Christ, which is me. I'm the offspring of Abraham, not the people who are the flesh of the Jews. And you see that in John 8, where Christ is a character in the story, calls them the children of the devil, whereas Paul calls Christ the true offspring of Abraham. Those who come into me are the true offspring of Abraham. It's even called Abraham. And the kingdom of heaven will be taken away from them and given to who? Him. Ham. Me. Me in terms of, me being Christ, not being Ham. But, my flesh is the offspring of Ham. It gets a little tricky. If you have any questions, put in the comments. Okay, so where are we here? Yet I will remember my covenant I made with you in the days of your youth, and I will establish an everlasting covenant with you. Then you will remember your ways and be ashamed when you receive your sisters, both those who are older than you and those who are younger. I will give them to you as daughters, but not on the basis of my covenant with you. So I will establish my covenant with you, and you will know that I am the Lord. Then when I make atonement for you for all you have done, you will remember and be ashamed and never again open your mouth because of your humiliation, declares the Lord. Now keep in mind, I am a living symbol that when they do not obey God through me, they waste their lives. God is not going to do things the white man's way, so how much of a fool will they make of themselves? White culture is fairy tale culture. How do you know? Well, what is white culture? What are significant points of references? Maybe Christmas, Halloween, Valentine's Day, New Year's, Easter, maybe the cartoons, right? That they show, Disney cartoons, Looney Tunes. Now, if you pay close attention, you see that they've merged this kind of cartoon thinking with their culture, right? McDonald's, those of you in California, at least Jack in the Box, Burger King, right? This kind of, In-N-Out Burger, okay? You see this theme time and time again, this surreal theme, how the church depicts angels and how it depicts, God Almighty as Zeus and so on and so forth. It's this trance-like cartoon cartoon depiction that they got from Egypt, and the cartoonage is what it was called in Egypt when they would paint these kind of, cartoon-like figures on, in various places, including on the funerary masks.